welcome to a new episode of Voice of Crypto. This is a podcast where we talk about crypto, Web3, metaverse, NFT, and everything in between. And today we have Jon, who is a very special guest and who has come on this podcast. So welcome on this podcast, Jon.
Thank you very much. I'm Jon Poole. I'm the head of community at Waves right now with Waves Labs. Thank you very much for hosting me. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Jon, for coming on this. So Jon, my first question, in which I really love to start the conversations with, is how do you describe your role to somebody who is, let's say, a 10-year-old kid?
Yeah.
And, which is in the simplest manner, what exactly do you do?
What a fantastic question. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain what I do to people, either out in social settings or to, my fiance's friends and family, or even to my own family when they ask, what are you doing for work these days? And I tell them, generally, when you say, what's your occupation, tech consultant comes up, just because it's the digital nomad world and the jobs available in this digital nomad scene, especially in blockchain, are so unique and fresh. It's a new industry, especially community. It's a new industry, and it's not taught at university yet, although it is starting to leak into some of the crypto universities, and a few of the universities are starting to recognize that community is the new marketing. But I like to say that I build human systems, that I specialize in human system buildings. I build frameworks to enable decentralized systematic evolutions using your community to help you get to the next level of your business. I say that the community is the lifeblood of decentralized business models, and therefore it's changing the integration of the way that community is involved with every department within a traditional business. So that's kind of the way that I introduce what I do to friends and family. I just kind of let them know there's a whole new side of engagement and data monetization and just all the things that come from using community within decentralized businesses that people don't recognize is being done behind the scenes. And I think, the traditional Web2 industry has crafted this mindset that we enter the internet, the data highway, if you will, and disregard every single thing once we're on it. We don't care what we're using in terms of privacy. We don't care where our data is going. We don't care the value of the data that's extracted from us. And we don't care who gets funds from the engagement that we offer. We enter social media outlets or platforms, and we engage in ways that we really don't recognize the loss that we are facing while we're online. And so, decentralized business, Web3, coming in and shaking this concept up, it's taken society and the masses a very long time to understand that there's something going on right behind them or underneath them, and they don't recognize it. So that's the long-winded version of explaining to people what I do. The short version, building human systems and helping businesses tap into what the superpower that community can be for their decentralized business. That's the short end, but it's very exciting, and I'm privileged to say that I'm a digital nomad and that I do work within the industry of community. So most people look at me, even tech workers, and they think that doesn't make sense. Like, even IT workers that I sit down with, they've been 10-year IT specialists, they work at government facilities, they don't understand the importance of community management within a decentralized business model.
Absolutely, Jon, and I really, so Jon is somebody I really like creating human systems and the power behind community. I would like to call you the kryptonite of communities then. So this is
Thank you so much.
which you power up. And you mentioned that this skill set is not being taught in colleges, universities. There is no skill set. So I would really like to know, and this is my second question to you. A lot of people, in fact, most of the people whom I meet in Web3 space, they had never planned to get into Web3 because probably when they started planning their career, there was nothing called as Web3. So
Yep.
what you used to do before this, and do you remember that exact accident/incident which brought you into Web3? So these
I
two
do.
questions.
Yeah, I do. And mine is a little bit more abrupt than most digital nomads. They have the story where they're sitting behind their computer at work and they're just tired and they don't want to be working for someone else anymore and they're looking for the next big thing. Or, some poker players that were forced to invest in Bitcoin because the US government was freezing their accounts on Full Tilt Poker. There's all these stories of accidentally falling into blockchain, but mine is a little bit more abrupt. And we'll talk about something that's a little bit sensitive to me, so I will share with our community here. But I was involved in quite a bad car accident that crushed 3/4 of my body. And you may not recognize that from me sitting tall and having a big smile on my face, but it really was a life-changing incident that forced me to reconsider where I was going in life with my career. And at the time, I was a sheet metal journeyman. As contrasting as that is, I was a journeyman, a tradesman. HVAC is my bread and butter, and I was very strong in my trade, local 280, very proud to be a sheet metal journeyman. And I had moved my way up into the office. I was a draftsman, a 3D professional. I was doing project management and procurement and all these great things in the office. And I got in this bad accident. And they said, you've got to find something else to do with your life. You'll never walk again. You'll never run again. You'll never play hockey again. All these things they tell you on the medical side you'll never do. And that really put me into, the athletic mentality. I was an athlete my whole life, prospect for some of the Canadian national endeavors. But that athletic mentality allowed me to really push and get my body back to where I was able to prove a lot of those naysayers wrong. A lot of the medical facilitators that give you the worst outcomes, I proved them wrong within a few years. And it really empowered me as an individual, a young man, 26 at the time of that accident, to look at the world differently, to look at it from a lens that, human beings, the people at the top of their professions, they're only giving suggestions. They're only telling you what they know from their education or their experience. And you have to push and find things in this world on your own. You have to be confident that you can find things that other people aren't seeing and overcome the impossible. And so it allowed me to look at cryptocurrency and blockchain in a very different way. I looked at it from a very fresh lens. Is this the future? Is this something that I want to bet my future on? And I started getting involved. I started utilizing my downtime with my broken leg and chest and hips and all these different things. I started researching blockchain companies. And if I had only invested as much as I did with my time into Bitcoin when it was under $1, my accident was in 2012, and the serendipitous timing of that in relation to the rise of Bitcoin, this allowed me to look into this industry. It took me about 4 years to really take that plunge and really get involved and go full time and really commit myself into this industry. But that's my story in getting into blockchain. It was actually out of necessity. I was told to find a dormant hobby that I could do without the use of my athletic skills. And I transitioned my work ethic from, sports and business into my mind. And I recognized that as a transition that I had to make. I had to move from, being an earner using my body and my skills to being an earner that used my mind. And it really allowed me to start looking at human systems a little bit differently. What is the advantages to these new technologically advanced outcomes with blockchain, and how will it advance things even in the traditional construction industry? And I had the foresight within that industry working for procurement to recognize that even their systematic procurement and bidding processes could benefit from a technological advancement such as blockchain. And right now they're doing things very centralized. There's a lot of bidding and procurement websites that came about within the last 13 to 15 years that weren't existed before. You had to drive down and pick up paper plans in order to look at a construction site, and then put all your plans together on paper and drive it down and submit it. So everything's done online now, as it should be. As you would think in this day and age, online businesses are evolving, but they're not evolving in the way that blockchain empowers them to evolve in true decentralized fashions. So you have software companies, procurement sites, forming centralized entities. And it's once again creating the problems that blockchain is trying to solve with redundant building within Web 2. And this is happening across the board. You have traditional businesses, and I'll use construction as a comparison here because it's very easy for the traditional masses to understand, myself being one of those blue collar turned white collar, actually digital nomads. I won't even call myself white collar, but a lot of blue collar workers listening right now will relate these stories in construction. So these centralized businesses, they charge construction companies a fee, $1,000 per client, to be pre-approved to be able to bid on those client sites. And so they're using these centralized portals, almost like a ticketing fee. If you want to come in, and I'll use the analogy as a carnival or a casino for the gamblers in the room. Carnivals and casinos, you got to pay to get in. But once you're in, you can access other rides, you can access other games. But like some casinos and some rides, they'll charge you more for specific rides that are maybe a little bit better than others. And so you have this mentality of pay to play. You got to get in, you got to pay your fee, and then you can access things. And they're holding these rides and these games and these businesses hostage within a border. And with what we're trying to create in blockchain, borderless states, network states that don't have these walls, these rules forcing us to pay to play. That's what blockchain can introduce, decentralized offerings for even businesses in construction that don't want to pay these astronomical fees in order to compete with other tier one or larger contractors in your region. It forces the small guy out. And that's what you see with a lot of centralized business models, a lot of monopolies, a lot of government involved systems. They force the little man out. They don't allow for any type of progress within the class system of their society. And that's one of the things that blockchain and decentralized businesses really enables. It enables people to bring their real world skills or whatever skill set they have and start something and be involved with something, but maybe they're not the end all be all, but they can be one piece of something that's going to come together and be the solution for the masses without a centralized entity or a business saying, I've got the money, I'm going to own this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to make people pay to play. And it's no different than pharmaceuticals. You see this happening with miracle drugs that get bought out by a company that then 100 times the price of this pharmaceutical medicine that could help so many people. And there's some famous examples with the AIDS medication and a few of those other examples there with some pretty bad villains that we villainized in the world. But this is happening with businesses, and people don't recognize it the same as individuals trying to make money. It's no different. In the corporate world of America, corporations are human beings. They're treated as such. They're given rights, and they use that to their advantage. So, decentralized businesses have the opportunity of changing that. And, my story of coming from this centralized world of construction and evolving into blockchain and looking at decentralized business models, it actually struck a chord in terms of profit sharing. It made me think about companies that took the opportunity to profit share, to make their employees feel like they were owners. And there's some beautiful examples in Canada of this. WestJet is one of our perfect examples of an airline that decided to make its employees shareholders. So for the first time in one of our airlines, the employees that actually work the airline, they're vested members in the outcomes of their product. So the flight attendants, they're owners. The pilots, they're owners. Every single person in that airline cares about the safety, the well-being, the final outcome, the customer service. They're vested members as what we would consider today a DAO, right? And these are early examples of profit sharing where an owner of a corporation thought to themselves, how can I make this decentralized? And so we have some beautiful examples in corporate America or in corporate Canada of decentralization trying to work, but there's still boundaries. There's still, steps for the common person that they can't take to be a part of this. First of all, you got to work for WestJet. So, you can go on the open market and buy shares. It's a public company, but the saying here is that there's still one more step to be taken. There's still an evolution that can be taken here, and that's decentralized business models, and that's using community in a way where it's fair. And I say the term using very hesitant because it's not so much in decentralized businesses and Web3, it's not so much using as it is utilizing and offering a fair, cohesive opportunity for these people to be part of something that they otherwise would be, passerbyers or naysayers or anybody that just walks by and thinks that would be interesting, but I don't feel like it can be a part of that. This offers people an on-ramp, and you mentioned that before. people are hungry to get into this industry, and most people that you meet that are in this industry never intended on being in this industry, and they're quite surprised at where we've come in this industry. So I think that's one of the real things that I pride myself on, building an ambassador program and the human systems that we talk about. I love to say that I build an on-ramp for just passive community members to find talents and skills that they thought were unusable, untransferable. Even the ability to translate a language, we are harnessing and giving these people a new look at utilizing a skill set that they have that they didn't think could be turned into income, or helping a network evangelize towards mass adoption, or being part of something bigger than themselves in a philanthropic way, and just using their second language or their first language as a tool. So helping people get into this industry is something that I'm really proud of. The ambassador programs that I build, they're designed for this. They're designed to take anybody that really is just interested in being involved and helping them achieve baby steps to getting their toes wet, then their feet wet, then their ankles, getting closer to the projects that they're helping support by completing bounties, by building confidence and building relationships within the communities that we build, and making them feel like they're part of something. So yeah, that's my that's my long-winded answer about how I got into blockchain. It was completely forced upon me, and I'm very happy to say that is how it's happened.
I mean, it's really a fascinating story of how you completely changed. And I would say, rather than I mean, anything else, it's just about the mindset of when you see that this is something which it is not working. How do I pick up my things from here and then move it? So I mean, really fascinating story,
Thank you
John.
very much.
Now, I mean, you talk about creating human systems. You talk about community, and we all know community is the core of any Web3 project. But a lot of people still think community is just about one-way communication, or is it just about number of people who are a part of a community? So what are some of your tips and your view of how you look at a community, and what according to you is a success of a good community here?
Yeah, great question. So the number one thing that I would say for individuals within a project that are looking to do something like this, the number one thing is your community identity. And many projects, many businesses, they don't recognize that this is what you need to think about. And breaking that down, like unpacking that, a Web2 company, community is at the bottom of the marketing totem pole. And I don't know if our listeners know that, but that is the fact. If you look at a traditional Web2 company or traditional business, if you look at their hierarchy or their business plan on hiring or where their departments sit, you will see community at the bottom of the marketing hierarchy tree. It's all the way at the bottom. That's where the community manager is. It's right next to customer service. So in Web2, they think about community as the end game. They don't include them in their product development. They don't include them in BD recommendations. They don't include them in polls on what colors they would like to see next for their product. It's all done to marketing, and they figure out what we like, what we want to be told, how we want to be tricked to buy their product. So moving into Web3, you have to think about the community identity, because the community being the lifeblood of your business, they are the ones that actually have the voice. You can't tell them what they like. They're going to tell you what they like. And if they don't like what you think you're telling them they like, they're going to leave, because they don't have to be here, right? And that's the beauty of Web3. We have options. We're part of this. We can buy something knowing that we're investing in the product, in the company, and let's just talk about NFT projects, for example. If you buy an NFT, you're a vested member, you have one of those passes, you're part of the group. And maybe you're a flipper and that's not the way you're looking at it. But for many of us that buy for utility and the long term, you're actually buying a share in that company. You're buying one of a number of passes that identify you as a part owner and as a supporter, right? And in traditional Web2, you would buy a garment, you'd buy a product, and you'd just be somebody that bought something. You'd have nothing. You wouldn't have any exclusive access to anything. I'm sure they're starting to change things because of our industry, but traditionally that you're not thought of in a way of like, how can we keep them coming back? You know, what are we going to do next month to make these people happy? You're not in their thoughts. But in Web3, this is very different. We're no longer told what we like. We're involved. We're included in this whole evolution of what we can provide to a business. So the identity of what a business is trying to tap into needs to be set from day one, actually day zero. You need to understand who are the type of people you're trying to attract into your community. Because if you go out and you run a campaign to just bring people in, and then you try to run another campaign that's targeted around, let's say, you've got a product, right? Let's say you've got a surfing product. We'll just go towards the ocean. We'll support waves here. We'll talk about surfing. Let's say you're trying to push a surfing product, but you ran a campaign to just bring everybody. Now you've got 90% of your community that doesn't even have access to the beach, and you're going to try to talk about a surfing product. Well, you've already done yourself a disservice by wasting your initial campaign on bringing people to your platform, your product, your project, that you don't identify with. So your first campaign from right from the initial, you want to set out your community identity. What are the type of people that you're trying to attract, and who are the type of people that you're trying to attract? What are the qualities of these individuals that you relate with, so that you can build a core community that is of the right mindset, so that you can evangelize and you know, I don't want to say prophesize, but you can go out there and you can have word of mouth spreading from your community to the right individuals, growing your community in the right way, the way it was designed to be in the first place, with the people that you want closest to you. And you can enforce your guidelines with these types of individuals. And one of the examples would be price and speculation talk. This is one of the most toxic things that comes into community environments. And you have people that think they have the right to come in, kick the door down yelling, and start screaming at the top of their lungs how upset they are. And I joke about, you know, one of my close friends, he works at Samsung. And I joke about this all the time. Like, can you imagine being able to walk into Samsung's headquarters, kick the front door down, and start screaming at the CEO? You're not going to get close to this guy. You're not even going to get past the lobby, and nobody's going to hear you. But in Web3, you can. You can actually walk right into the lobby of these platforms or chat rooms or whatever platform they're using, and scream at the founders and at the team members and at the people that, you know, in traditional business, you'd never have access to. You'd never be given their email addresses. You'd never be able to send them direct messages. But for some reason in Web3, you can. And so if you're looking at the price and speculation side of things, if you don't create the community identity that can support these type of toxic individuals that, and I don't mean all of them, I mean the negative, disgruntled ones that want to be heard. And that's true. They want to be heard, and you can oftentimes convert these individuals from being really upset to being calm and understanding that you're going to take care of them. They just want to be heard. But at the same time, you're trying to protect a community identity that will not grow in the right way if you don't protect it. So you have to have that community identity outlined. You have to have rules and guidelines for your community, and you need to support your moderators with this mindset as well, so that they can enforce this type of protection so that you can grow in the right way. So that's the number one thing that I think is lost within a lot of community building. A lot of community managers out there haven't been educated to the point of identifying this. This is something that comes a little bit higher up, like when you get into the head ofs roles. This is something that you're starting to build because you're going up against other leaders in other departments that will manipulate that community identity if you don't protect it. And that comes with having a strong community leader that can go toe to toe with the other department leaders and say, listen, that's not the way we need to be doing things here. And there's far and few between that are capable of doing that in our industry right now. And I think that will come as we grow, as we get university programs building this, building the confidence for people to go up against marketing leaders that have 20 years of corporate experience. These are bulldogs and pit bulls. They're hard to work with because they know what they're doing. Previous individuals that I've worked with come from Microsoft, CNN, Coca-Cola, like some of these, Apple, Google, like these are, and they're all Ivy League university trained, like very smart people. These are the types of people that you have to work with at the levels that we're now getting to in blockchain. They're looking to hire powerful all-star leaders, but they're coming in with Web 2 experience. And so it's very important for the community community, pardon me. It's very important for the community, and the head of or the chief or whoever's running your community at the time, it's very important that they dig their heels in and they protect that community identity, because it's a new industry, let's say, growing pain that really is something that isn't taught. Like, this is something that community has to bring up themselves, and it can't be something that's pushed top down. I mean, it can be if you have a product driven project that specifically knows what you're going for. Let's say some of the smartware products that we've seen come out, like, these are very isolated products that need a very isolated community identity, and therefore marketing, they may be much more involved with who comes in, what kind of campaigns they run. But generally, the community is going to it's going to shape, like clay, it's going to shape your project. And if you're not helping it grow in the way that you want, it's going to turn out to be a shape that you never intended. And that's when it can start to run away from you. And that's when you actually have, I don't want to say civil wars, but that's when you have issues between founders that want to take it one direction, and they have the community support. And you may have another founder that thought to themselves, this is never how I intended this to go. And they may walk away very disgruntled to build something else more in line with what their vision originally was. But community identity is I think, something that's very overlooked. And I think, when I bring and present these to other leaders within the teams that I've been part of, it's something that really hits, like, oh, I never thought about it that way. It makes all the cogs click into place if everybody has the same vision. So in decentralized business models, I think that's the one commonality that has to be flowing through all departments, because once again, community being the lifeblood of your decentralized business, if the identity of that lifeblood, if it's not all the same, A plot or A negative or O negative, like if it's not all the same, you're going to have organ failure. You're going to have DAP failure. You're going to have failures amongst your ecosystem because your lifeblood is not providing the oxygen it needs. So that's I think that's one area that I think is really important as we move forward.
Absolutely, John. I really like the approach towards community, and I mean, yeah, I mean, even in fact, I have never thought about that in a Web2 business, community is at the bottom of the pyramid. It is just numbers on a spreadsheet. It is not the emotion, it is not the value. And I really like the analogy of going into a CEO's office in a Web2 environment. But yeah, I mean, and this is completely acceptable in Web3. I mean,
Yep.
nobody even looks at it from that angle that this guy is screaming. So interesting conversations happening, guys. Those who are listening to this podcast or watching, I'm trying to get as much insights about community management and what is human system, how to create human systems from John today. So let's continue. So my next question to you, John, is you said you create human systems, but we all know the typical marketing style of putting consumer personas does not work in Web3, because every consumer, and I would still not call them consumer, I will call them community members. They
Yeah.
are different. So how do you profile those kind of things when they are coming into your community, and how do you interact with them? Because everybody will have a different need, everybody will have a different
Yep.
mindset. So what are some of your strategies to interact with them?
Well, the simplest strategy is respect and appreciation, right? We're all human beings. We're all here for similar reasons. We're trying to change our lives. We're trying to push ourselves forward, whether we're here to make money or make connection. We're all here for a specific cause. Nobody comes into a community trying to make an enemy or trying to get into a fight. They're all here just being curious and looking for the next big thing. So if you welcome them with appreciation, kindness, curiosity, it really doesn't matter where you're from or what language you speak. There's a commonality already there. And I think, a warm reception of a new community member goes a significantly long way. You actually have a very short time period to make your first impression on a new community member. And that's why I stressed community identity so hard in our previous comment, is because if you don't have that protected, and a new member comes in and they see toxic behavior or something that they don't identify with, they'll leave. And it's no different than walking into, I mean, let's say a bar or a pub or a nightclub or a restaurant, like somewhere where you go in, you take your partner and you're looking for a nice evening out. Let's say you walk in and you see a bar fight. most likely going to walk back out. You're not going to bring your wife or your partner or your girlfriend into that place unless you're looking for that. You're not going to take them into that place. You're going to walk around and find somewhere else. So taking that mindset of every new community member that comes in is a human being that deserves time, respect, and appreciation. And you just want to help them find what they're looking for. And all of our new ambassadors, the one line that I say to them, and I mean it, and I say this maybe a little bit too much, but the word empowering is my keystone. How can I empower that ambassador or that community member to either find what they're looking for or to connect with who they're looking for? That's the truth about every single community member coming in, is looking for that type of empowerment. They're either looking for an answer, they're looking for an opportunity, they're looking for a human being, they want to get their proposal across. So if you take that mindset, that it's such an easy landing pad for anybody, and they're most likely going to take a look around, maybe go to the links that you provide to them. But it comes from a warm reception. You have to just recognize it doesn't matter what country, it doesn't matter what language. Taking that network state mentality, building a network state, we are all part of one family here. Even in blockchain, we have layer ones that compete against one another. But when you take a step back, we're actually a very small industry. There's not a lot of us in it. And when you get into the side of working in it, it's even smaller. There's only a couple hundred top projects that have these types of teams involved, and you get to know one another and you move around. So I think treating everybody with respect is first and foremost. Everybody's a human being, and take that network state, take that borderless state mentality and apply it to your team. You're not from Canada anymore. You're not from India anymore. You just have time zones. And it's really about, welcoming people from different time zones and enabling them, empowering them to find what they're looking for. And when we talk about human systems, it's even more advantageous to think about it in this way, because if you're starting to grow regions or pockets for the project or the community that you're in that aren't already part of it, now we're talking about spreading mass adoption. We're talking about infiltrating new regions and helping you grow popularity and foothold in new areas and possibly a new language that you never had access before to. And every new language that you can harness and tap into, there's potential millions of people that can now take a look at your project as their introduction into blockchain. So there's so much opportunity out there. It's ripe for picking. And there was this one opportunity, I think it was I'm missing, I think it was an East Indian language, Urdu. That's what it was. 35 million people speak Urdu. And I had an ambassador in the past translate one of our introduction articles into Urdu. And all of a sudden, there's access to millions of people that have never heard about blockchain before for their first introduction through one of the ambassadors that used one of his real life skill sets that he did not recognize as a transferable skill into blockchain. He used his ability to translate into Urdu. He got paid for doing it. And now he's an evangelist for an entire language group that never had access previously, because nobody takes the time to think that these individuals should be respected no different. Well, I shouldn't say nobody takes the time. There's plenty of people, including myself, that take the time, but it's commonly missed to take the time to help people translate even the smallest little article, because you don't know whose life you're going to change. And when I first started out, going back to my bio, I started out with Oasis Protocol Foundation 5 years ago, and I built their ecosystem from scratch. And one of the things that I really prided myself on was trying to infiltrate third world countries and places that really could use the change. And I don't mean to put those countries down by calling them third world. I mean to just isolate the opportunity there. 10 cents in a country like China to the actual poor people that aren't in big cities, that only have access to a cell phone. This is life-changing income to these individuals. And if we can provide this to them, and in India as well, the Philippines, like there's so many, and in Africa, there's so many of these regions around the world that can change lives through just the use of their cell phone, and as upwards of 10 to 20 cents a day to feed themselves and make themselves feel like they're no longer a burden on their family. And I know a young generation like ours that's in blockchain, we're not really thinking about that right now. There's a few of us that do have parents that are getting into their late 70s, myself included. I do have to start thinking about this. And if you're if you're of that age group now, and I can't imagine feeling like this, but when I'm in my 70s and if I don't do my retirement planning properly, am I going to be a burden to my children? And am I going to feel good about being a burden to my children? So we're even providing opportunities in a new landscape for people to be able to provide income for themselves, to not be a burden on their families, to be able to contribute in ways that previously they don't have access to. So if we can evangelize into these groups and get the languages out there to tons of people, I think there's a lot of power in that. But it all comes down to recognizing that any new person that walks through the door has unlocked hidden potential, that if you just nurture them like a seed, you have no idea where they're going to go. So I urge all community members and managers, moderators, if you're a moderator right now, that's where I started. And so there's a whole world for you to get into, but treat people with respect and don't burn out. Like moderators burn out. There's about a 6-month window that a moderator has before they either recognize they're good at this or they recognize they hate it. And for moderators that like it, utilize this opportunity. Look at everybody that comes in like a ray of sunshine, a new seed that you're watering, that take pride in being curious about where they'll go in their career, because you just never know. And the proof is in the pudding. I talked about, being with Oasis for 5 years. There's numerous members within that core team that started out as ambassadors. They started out just asking, how can I get involved? And now they're full-time team members on their BD team, community management teams, running their Spain division. This is how you grow an organic community, is by treating people with respect and just looking at every single new member with, bright eyes. You never know what they're going to become.
Really interesting conversations happening with Jon, guys. And Jon, as so now coming to your current company, what are you guys building? What
Yes.
change are you bringing in the world? And then what is Waves all about?
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. So there's two parts to this. Obviously, Waves Labs. We were built to harmonize the Waves ecosystem. So we're somewhat of an umbrella company that has brought in 6 years. Waves was built in a very organic way with projects all over the place. And I like to use that analogy of a carnival again. When I got to the Waves ecosystem, we had rides scattered all over the place. And many of our community members, they didn't even know that some of these rides, aka projects, were affiliated with one another because they were just built in very organic ways. They had their own micro communities, and I call them micro because they're part of one larger community. So they had a very fractioned organization, a very fractioned community that wasn't harnessed like the superpower it was, or is, I should say. So taking the mindset of the carnival, I got all these rides back into the same area. And we may not have put a border around it because we want to be a borderless state, but as a community member, you can walk around now and you can recognize, oh, this project's part of Waves. This project's part of Waves. We put social media maps together. We're building a new community hub. There's so much love that's gone into harmonizing and making the Waves ecosystem feel like a family again. And then the one thing that I'm really excited about that we built for them was an ambassador program for the ecosystem. This ambassador program has gained so much traction within the projects within the ecosystem that we're actually evolving into what was always designed. And I designed this years ago, but it was designed to become its own project. So we're actually evolving the ambassador program into its own DAO, into its own project, its own lifeblood. We'll be launching a token, we'll be launching an NFT project. This is going to be community management as a service for community in a way that has not been done before in blockchain. And the reason that I wanted to evolve this into a project, it was about the 2-year mark within the community industry, within blockchain, that I recognized that most projects were redundantly building the same thing. They were all going after the same resources and they were all building the same thing. They were all building community management systems with a community management team. They'd hire a community manager, they'd build an ambassador program, they'd get a few moderators, and then the latest and greatest thing is to buy a software that allows you to manage them from a very centralized location. You can use Crew3 to work. There's a number of these softwares that take the complexity out of community management and make it so that you're managing a community instead of using or utilizing your community to manage your project. So it's a very backwards way of thinking. Originally, we saw this redundancy, everybody building the same thing. And the way it evolved 5 years later was a very Web 2 approach. It's centralized companies, once again, looking at something very powerful that they don't want to lose control of and trying to monopolize it through centralized softwares, through centralized companies that these projects pay to utilize rather than having an organic, functioning community management team. So what we decided to do was provide the solution. So I saw redundancy being built all over the place, people trying to poach each other's employees, even myself being approached by numerous projects. I can't even go on LinkedIn. Like, this is how serious this problem is. Going on LinkedIn as a community manager or a head of community or anything like this, your DMs are just blown up with offers to join other projects. And yes, it's a very nice problem to have. I'm not complaining about it, but it is what I'm trying to highlight is from a business perspective, from a project's perspective, this is a nightmare. You're having your team be approached daily by other people that are trying to offer them more money. And if you're trying to build something, how are you supposed to retain the talent that you're training, but also protect the community identity that you've built by having to train new people consistently because other people are poaching them? So I came up with the premise of building something that was more of a solution, more of a one-stop shop for community, in the way that instead of us being poached into their projects, instead of the carnival being dissipated all over the place, I had the idea of, again, using this carnival idea of keeping the community in one place, of building it once and allowing other projects to come to us like rides. And instead of the community having to move around and the community managers and the community moderators and everybody having to compete and being poached and relearn new projects, they could stay in one place, build their reputation, build the community, really build relationships and work on their skill sets, and have projects come to us to utilize the skills that we've already put in place and eliminate the need for redundant department building. And also, and this is the biggest kicker, not give the power of community, the value of community, to a centralized software company that does nothing different than what Web 2 has done to us for decades. And that is the problem that we're facing right now in community. And I don't think a lot of people recognize it, because this is all done behind the curtain. If you think about it, it's no different to the community member. They don't recognize a difference. The real difference is on the back end, on the business side of things. You have two options right now that you can choose. You can choose the organic, decentralized way, or you can choose the centralized software way, which is pushed out by some of these competitors that I talked about, which we will now be going up against. So we're trying to offer a one-stop shop solution for projects looking to harness the power of community, to brand a community identity, and to access professional ambassadors in one place that can utilize their skill sets proven through their reputation score, the system that we've provided, multi-tier system for people to move up the ranks, but they can already access a professional community without having to redundantly trying to build their own. They don't have to buy or poach a head of community. They don't have to hire community managers. They don't even have to hire community moderators. They can set campaigns. They can put a budget behind something, and they can extract the value that they necessarily need for the lifeblood of their business to succeed and move to the next step without taking a risk on trying to hire within the industry. They can just tap into what we've already provided them. So the ambassador program, I'm very excited to talk about this. It will become its own DAO. Right now, we're at about 1,000 members, just shy of 1,000. We've got new recruits in our tier ones, and we've even got upwards of tier threes. There is tier fives all the way down the list, so there's lots. And it is, like I mentioned, an on-ramp getting into the industry. We do provide opportunity for people to just use their real world skills, build new skills, and get mentored from other ambassadors. Even our influencer program that we've started up, we've got real influencers. We're targeting micro influencers, so we don't want people with millions of followers, because let's face it, once they get to that level, it's a little bit of a different game. We're looking for organic influencers that still haven't got to that level, because I think you could agree, once you get to that level, the game's a little bit different. It's more of a pay to play, and we're looking for more of organic influencers that still want to be, you know, sided with the work that they do. And that's another thing. We're offering opportunity for ambassadors and influencers to choose the work that they do. So this is a very different situation. So again, taking a look at what was being done in the industry. If we look at what was being done with influencers, so community on one side being forced to use bounty management system softwares, being siloed into centralized Web2 situations. There's something even worse being done to influencers with Web3, and that is making them perform like puppets, like actors. There's many influencers right now, and maybe this is a surprise to some of our listeners, but there are a number of influencers that are just puppets. They're just a face. They don't own their social media. They're told what to say and when to say it. They literally do not own the social media that they perform on, and they aren't even called the name in which they perform under. They're a complete puppet. They're just a face. They're an actor. And they are found on places like Fiverr. You can go onto Fiverr and you can hire an actor to read exactly what you give him, exactly when you tell him to do it. It could be a Sunday and this guy has no choice. If you hire him on Sunday to do a job and he's available on Fiverr, he's going to do it, and you're going to get exactly what you want. And this guy is completely a shill, because and there's nothing wrong with that. Like the term shill gets a really negative connotation, but it's in the dictionary. There's no getting around it. It's an actual term for service, which is totally fine. But that is in my opinion not organic. It's not what the community thinks they're seeing. So there's a smoke and mirror show being done with shilling and influencers, and the entire industry is being taken over by this. You have influencer agents that find the work for these influencers. They tell them what to do and when to do it. And if they don't do it, they're fired. They don't actually have a choice on the work they do. And the entire influencer industry is leaning towards this. You're even getting influencers that have so much overflow work that they decide to just become an influencer agent. All of a sudden, they're making a cut off of the other people that are doing the work. So you have already a multi-level system spawning, but it's not in the right way. It's not in a systematic multi-level marketing hierarchy. It's done in a very under the table, I'm not going to tell you how much I'm making, blind, ruthless industry that really just chews people up and spits them out. But the real problem with this, and if you unpack everything I'm saying right now about the influencer agency, the real problem is the end user. It's the common person that goes onto YouTube to get advice or to get a recommendation or to find out if something's honest or lying. And they get just inundated with media and content that is dishonest. So what we're trying to build through our ambassador program is an always-on opportunity for ambassadors and influencers and shillers to be able to access work without feeling like they're being told what to do. We actually present the work to the ambassadors or the influencers, and they have a choice if they want to do it or not. And it's actually a competition. Who wants to do it first? And the quality of the work is the benchmark. So we built bounties that are as simple as, what do you need done? How much are you willing to pay for it? And what is the minimum requirement before you're willing to pay it? What's the KPI? It's as simple as that. And if the influencer wants to come in and engage and get work done on their own free time, this is the first opportunity for many of these influencers and ambassadors to work in this fashion. It's commission style, it's part-time, it's volunteer, it's do at your own pace, it's meant to be fun. And what kind of work environment generally offers all of those key points? I mean, there's very few places, and that's one of the things that I really wanted to focus on. It was creating an environment with, you know, a project with a community identity that was about fun, engagement, and about supporting one another, right? Having that family vibe, that family feeling of, you know, getting support from strangers around the world and just feeling so uplifted and proud to be a part of something like that makes you want to come back. So this is something that we're really focusing on, this new ambassador program. We are taking applications. We'll put the links in the bio, please. Take a look at the site. If there's something for you, please apply. If there's not something for you right now, I encourage you to apply anyways, because the way that we're structuring this is we will be bringing new and fun campaigns to our ambassadors in ways that they can choose what to participate in. And it's not just campaigns from other clients. We're going to have an NFT collection. We're going to have a lottery system. There's a lot of fun things. I mentioned to the gamblers earlier. I mentioned the casino earlier. I do like to play a lot of gambling games. I love the gamification of these types of chance games. So we're building a lot of fun into this, but it really is just a collection of the most uplifting, enthusiastic, and kind individuals that we can find within blockchain, and that's kind of what we've been providing to Waves. And the exciting part is that we've been providing enough value to Waves that they're recognizing this as something that we can evolve into a project, into a DAO, and with what we've built with PowerDAO on the Waves ecosystem. If you haven't heard about PowerDAO, I urge you to check it out. It's a new governance-focused PowerDAO mechanism. I shouldn't say PowerDAO mechanism. It's a new governance-focused DAO framework, so that you can actually utilize the benefits of PowerDAO to bolt on and adapt. And this is in the roadmap. It's not functioning right now, but you will be able to fix existing DAOs. And many of the DAOs right now that have issues are based on governance and treasury governance. It's all about governance. And that's why, Sasha, the founder of Waves, he came up with the idea for PowerDAO because he was tired of seeing politicians, if you will. And that's truthfully what these people in DAOs are. People that make proposals in DAOs, they're no different than a politician. But what we were seeing in the industry of DAOs is that there was no accountability on these politicians, on these proposals. There's no slashing, there's no punishment. It's just someone going in and saying, oh, I can do that, and then not doing it, and then no repercussion. And the DAO is the real loser here in this whole situation, because they don't get the progress, they don't get the update, they don't get the progress in their roadmap, and then everybody else in the DAO suffers. Meanwhile, there could be some individuals in the DAO that strategically did this on purpose to benefit their position in the DAO. So you have these complex inner attacks happening because of governance weaknesses inside DAOs. And this is the number one reason that PowerDAO was made. It's meant to put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to claim an evolution to your DAO, the mechanisms within PowerDAO allow you to stake Power token to say that you will do it. And if you do, you get rewarded for it. Not only do you get more reputation that you can make more proposals, you get rewards, people bet on you and it worked out. But the real kicker is if you don't do it, you lose the tokens you put up. And this is the first of its kind. Like, it's very innovative. If you believe that you can do something, you should be willing to put your money where your mouth is, and you should be willing to bet that you will do it. Otherwise, don't say you'll do it. And it's as simple as that. This whole premise of making people accountable in a DAO is revolutionary, because for the first time, you can actually say, I believe you, because you put the money that you said behind yourself. And if you don't do it, you lose all that money. So can you imagine that? Like in politics, like in Canada, with our democracy, I can't imagine a politician having to actually, like, let's say, bid. Like, if two politicians went up on stage and bid for the right to be the mayor, and put all the changes that they put in place, or they had to pay penalties for every promise they made that they didn't make. I use this one example, and it's very Canadian of me, but in one of our greater Vancouver cities, there was a mayor that got elected based on some promises that he made to the city. And one of the promises, and again, this is where the Canadian comes in, one of the promises that he made was to build a new hockey arena for a particular small town in this city. And the way that our cities are done, Greater Vancouver, it's got our small cities, and within those cities are municipalities, so smaller regions in the city. So one of these municipalities was promised a hockey rink. Well, the moment this guy got elected, he moved that hockey rink and put it in a different municipality that didn't need it. This one municipality that really needed this hockey rink, it had an old rink, and all the other municipalities had new ones previously built. And he changed the location, and not just the location. He took all the money that the taxpayers had put into to building this arena, and he moved it. And there's no penalty, no repercussion. Nobody says you're not mayor anymore. It's fully within his power to do these types of things because he's already elected. So this is exactly the problem that we see around the world. It's not just Canada, it's not just hockey rinks. We're talking about serious policy changes within governments that affect people. I mean, I'm not even going to get into Russia right now, that whole situation. But even in India with the banking situation and the corporate frauds that happen in these countries, these are things that happen on a repetitive basis because the framework is broken. The governance model is not designed to penalize or penalize people for making mistakes or not doing what they say. And they get away with it, and they do it repeatedly. So this is one of those framework changes that we're really excited about, because this is going to help evolve the industry. And Waves itself doesn't really want to say that they own PowerDAO, because the truth is that they built it for the industry. It's built for everybody. And Sasha didn't build this for him. He didn't build it for Waves. He built this to try and be a philanthropist, to try and help the ecosystem, to help our industry evolve what DAOs are. So we're going to take PowerDAO. It's going to be the mother DAO. It allows you to build other DAOs on PowerDAO. It's kind of like a mother DAO. You could build children DAO. And the ambassador program DAO will be built on PowerDAO. It's very exciting for us. So right now we're going through all the branding and all
I
this
think
exciting
we
stuff.
would need to do an interesting episode specifically on DAOs, because I can relate a lot of interesting things coming out which can be used in the real world as well.
Exactly.
But because we have a limitation of time here, John,
Okay.
what I would really like to do is I would really like to thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing.
Thank you so much.
These are lovely insights, and I think if every community member, community manager, community moderator, marketing people start thinking from your point of view, I think Web 2, Web 3, everything will start changing in. But
Thank you so much.
thank you very much for coming on this
I
podcast
appreciate it.
and giving your time.
Thank
John.
you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to all our listeners for taking the time as well and sticking it out with me. It's been such a pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity.